So maybe it's the glasses? Welcome to The Big Puzzle. In this podcast, we explore the subtle connections between science, religion, politics, economics, and history. One piece at a time, we unveil the big picture of this shared experience that we call life. Today I want to talk a little about that video I recorded now a few weeks ago when I told the story as it was told to me by a time traveler who explained to me how we eventually got to Mars and how the discovery happened. So now I want to talk about certain specific aspect of that might make it difficult for that event to happen. And the first one I want to talk about is the idea of serendipity. Right? So most of the discoveries in science that turn into useful technology came up from serendipity. People were doing something else and they end up finding something weird. And I quoted Isaac Asimov. He said that, I can't remember the quote now, but the most common expression in discovery was not eureka, like Archimedes, but that's funny. So it's usually something that you don't expect, and then you try to explain it, and that leads to further knowledge, further questions, and that's how science and technology progress. So this idea of serendipity means that you cannot plan for it. Right? You just have to be attentive when it happens. In the story, remember that Dr. Krauss, he found this weird behavior in his equipment, and he was trying to solve a very specific problem. He had a deadline and he had to conduct some experiments and his equipment was failing. When he found the solution, he couldn't explain why that solution worked. Why was that producing, remember the microwaves from another lab, why would they produce that problem in his equipment? He could have just said, okay, I figured out, let's turn off this equipment, or the Faraday cage. All those things would solve the problem. And he could have just, okay, I'll keep working on this and forget about it. But luckily for our future us, he didn't leave it there. And that's the second important thing that we need to have. It's not only serendipity, but it's the scientific curiosity. Right? He wanted to be able to explain why, and he tried to embark some other people. He got the help from Dr. Rees, but he couldn't even get the help from the manufacturer of the equipment, and nobody believed him. So he had to do it on his own time and with his own money, with his own resources, and that is another issue that we're facing today. Scientists are not, they're not curious in that way. So this was kind of not his field of research, and it wouldn't give him any benefits doing that. It was just his curiosity that made him move forward. But the other problem is that the problem of specialization. So what he ended up finding had nothing to do with his field of research. And in the past, people were more polymaths. They could understand science from many points of view. So when they saw something that they couldn't explain, well, they could tackle it from other disciplines, physics, chemistry, whatever, right? Even math or abstract sciences could help them tackle different problems. So specialization could be an issue because maybe he would never, even if he had the curiosity and the event happened in front of him, he wouldn't have the tools, the mental tools to tackle that problem. So those are changes that are happening in humanity that make it harder and harder for these discoveries to be identified and to be developed. Then the problem of getting it published or getting academic attention on their work. And again, academia unfortunately is going in weird directions. The other day, I think it was Sabine Hossenfelder that she was talking about how many papers are published that make no sense whatsoever, that I just created with LLMs and probably reviewed by LLMs, and it's just people who are desperate to have papers published. With some time I can give you some personal examples of when I was reviewing papers for a journal and some of the things that I've seen. And this is, I don't know, probably 10 years ago or even more. So things are way worse now. So academia is not interested in fostering science and in fostering knowledge. Unfortunately, it is the truth. Just compare one magazine that I loved when I was a boy and a young adult, that was Scientific American. Well, now it's unreadable. It's garbage, pretty much. So what I want to point out is that all these things are changing and would make something like I described in that story more and more difficult. Then, when they finally got some proof, well, everybody wanted to, jump on the winners parade, and the other thing is the military. The military immediately tried to say, okay, how can we weaponize this? And you can have your opinions about that, but the problem again is kind of a game theory problem. And we can connect to that piece of the puzzle that we talked in the past. And well, if you don't use it, your enemy will. So that produces the weapons race, the atomic, the nuclear race, and all the races are just, well, we need to be there first, because if not, our enemy will be there first. But it's a challenge, because sometimes the only driver for scientific development is the military, which is sad, but it happened to them as well. And sometimes it feels for scientists, you're making a pact with the devil, and in a certain way you are, but there's no other way. So that also happened to them. And then this idea of incremental progress, right? Once everybody is after that, is where you really can, get the benefits. So that is kind of the first part of what I wanted to talk about. But the second part is, let's talk about the story itself. I've seen movies recently or some recent books, and they are so lame from the scientific point of view. Right? They are lazy, and I'm talking science fiction mostly, right? Or even some of these concepts also apply to fantasy. So you cannot just make up things and convenient things that happen when you need them to happen, and then they're not important anymore, and all the movies in particular are now plagued by that. They don't create a coherent universe, even when you're talking about the future. And what I wanted to prove with this story is that you can create something that is very similar. So very similar means that it's similar to truth. It looks like it could be true, and it's internally coherent. Is it true? Well, I don't think so, unless I really got a visit from a traveler from the future, and what I told you is true. I will leave it up to you. But I try to tell a consistent, coherent story using real science, things that have been proven, that have been, the technology that exists, and introduce through this serendipitous discovery, a new realm, and with its new challenges, but with its new opportunities. It's not that hard. Just read Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, and Ray Bradbury. Many of the great science fiction writers of the past, they were very, very good at that. For me, in particular, Isaac Asimov is amazing how he could, he could write popular science, he could write science fiction, he could write about religion, he was really a master in building the big puzzle. So I don't know, maybe it's because the viewers are lazy, they don't care. Right? So I haven't watched those movies, but I heard about them, and now they create this multiverse that you can get away with anything because you should jump to another universe, but that happens, and then you come back to this other universe. So nobody really dies. There's nothing at stake. So it's just to have people looking at the screen, drooling and not thinking, and it's sad. It's sad. I mean, you cannot enjoy something that you haven't invested in. Right? And some investment sometimes is the focus, is the concentration, is what really hooks you into the story. And then once you're hooked, you could be shaken, and you could be surprised, or you could be, manipulated willingly, emotionally, and all that experience is what makes watching movies interesting. But that suspension of disbelief is limited, right? And it's even better when you are immersed in a world that has its own rules, it's consistent with itself, and it's consistent with what we know as well. Right? So as I mentioned, this also applies to fantasy. And you could talk about Tolkien, you could talk about, I don't know, I can think about any other writers now, but all the old fantasy books, they created a universe, and once you got there, you feel there, and you start learning about it, and makes it very enjoyable, right? So hopefully, I don't know, this video help you think a little about the direction that our scientific community and academia is going. Is there anything that we can change? I would invite you to go back and read those books, those old books. They're still amazing even today. And we hopefully can talk about this in the comments. And if you have any feedback or anything that you want me to address, just let me know there, and we can meet in the next one. So bye.